Is this a path of will up ahead? Or are we just destined to get what we get? Drawn to your face like never before. Even the mistakes aren't really mistakes at all. I wanna confess that you own me. And we don't rest if we're lonely. There's innocence in the moments. Maybe now's the time to be alive. We steal the molecules from the dead. We liberate inanimate objects. Is this a sign of wheeling ahead? Or are we predestined to get what we get? Drawn to your face like never before. Even mistakes aren't really mistakes at all. I wanna confess that you still time to be alive.
One rule is keeping my cool, even if I'm broken. If you pull my eye, you won't see me cry. Gotta respect it. Never let them see you down, Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel session, Corporate Venture Capital, a driving force in the AI fundraising ecosystem, will begin momentarily. Please take your seat.
The breath until I reach out. You don't know where I'm from, so keep moving on and go throw on a chance to smile. The day one rule is keeping my cool, even if I'm broken. If you blow my high, you won't see me cry. Gotta whistle while you walk. That's why you gotta see you down, see you down. Gotta smile, you're hurting.
You good to go? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming in for an early session. I really appreciate it. And just in case you didn't get enough strong coffee, I'm going to ask for some strong opinions right up front, get you all going. But first, let me set the stage just briefly, which is to say that corporate venture is a linchpin for the revolution. It's going to play an outside role. It probably already has, and it certainly will in the future. Not simply because the people before you today are going to be deploying immense capital, but they have access to the partnering, the relationships, the engineering, many other aspects, the data, many other aspects that the younger companies, the people making new products, devising new engineering, working with these companies will need for success. In many cases, they've done many deals in the space already, many more to come, and I hope to hear a little bit about that today. But let me begin by starting with you, Eric, working down the line. Briefly introduce yourself and your company, but also because this isn't standard venture, this is opinionated venture. This is venture oriented towards each of your companies. Give me something like a thesis or a strong opinion about how you see the future, and particularly vis-a-vis AI.
Yeah, sure. My name is Eric Mergenholz. I work at Oracle as a Vice President of Strategy and Operations. So I do rhythm of the business. I also do a lot of partnership work with customers and so forth. So at least from my perspective, I look at generative AI as a technology that's broadly applicable, that is virtually guaranteed to change lives. I spend a lot of time with customers, like I mentioned, and without fail, once you kind of explain the technology to them, and frankly, there are customers on the broad spectrum of sort of adoption. Many of the customers that we speak with are on the early stage. But once they understand some of the capabilities, they can quickly identify problems and use cases to try to fix in their business, and given some of the financial pressure, the need to do more with less. I'm optimistic, and I'm sure that this is going to be just revolutionary for all of us.
How's that reflected in the deals you've done? Can you name a couple of investments that are public?
That are public. Sure. So public, we have deals with Uber, XAI, Microsoft. Many of these deals, they span infrastructure as a service, so just deploying their own workloads on the OCI infrastructure. And I'll just talk about sort of an internal deal with Fusion. So we're enabling all of our applications, our SaaS applications, with generative AI technology that's built on our PaaS portfolio. So we have a lot of customers who are using those capabilities to both build brand new applications and extend their existing applications using that same infrastructure as a service capability that we offer.
Outstanding. And if you do want to mention some ones that haven't been disclosed publicly, I'm good. So go. But let's move down the panel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Oriana Spalding. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of M12. I've been at Microsoft a long time, nearly 17 years, but I'm relatively new to venture. Came in about 2 years ago when Microsoft did our strategy shift to say, hey, like, financials not end all be all. Let's make sure we're also, looking at the strategic angle of things. And by the way, that also helps our founders because then we can, help outside growth for them by reaching into the Microsoft platform. In terms of how we're thinking of AI, I mean, it's interesting to be, now, I said I was there at Microsoft 17 years, so I've seen a lot of evolution of Microsoft in that time. It's really interesting to sit in our venture space with AI and some of the investments that Microsoft has made, because we're definitely riding on some of the coattails of that right now. But in terms of, and I'm the COO, right? So I sit on top of half the team, which is the partnerships, the platform, the marketing, the CFO, all that kind of stuff. So I sit on the investment committee, but I'm not investing, so not the AI expert. But I think our opinion, or my opinion, I should say, is that AI will kind of become like electricity. So it's going to be literally everywhere, and and I have to say, I stole this from an economist I listened to once, but it really resonated. Like electricity, it took some time to kind of get that adoption. If you ask my family in the Midwest, it's not really everywhere, right? We're feeling it on the West Coast, New York, a lot of other places. But I think once we have the platform and the capabilities and the adoption, it will be kind of everywhere, and we won't even think twice about it. So, software eating business, I think AI is kind of eating everything.
Now, obviously today I do not speak for Google, but Microsoft is known generally as having a certain orientation towards enterprise applications. I assume that's the first place you see AI really taking hold, becoming like electricity. It's the highest value.
Absolutely.
Is that reflected in the investment you're making?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, if you think about our position in AI and how much we're doing right now, we can't cover everything. Like, to use one example, AI opens up a lot more security, like vulnerabilities. So one place we invest heavily is cybersecurity. And what are the different vectors that our startups can help in terms of securing AI? Because Microsoft's not going to do that alone. That's not, with Satya, that's kind of been our new position, is we empower everyone, right? Like, we work with all of our customers to solve the problems. We're the platform. So I would say our startups fit in nicely to that strategy because they're looking at things like, actually, Hidden Layer is going to speak later today at 11, and they just released a report on security and what you should be thinking about AI. We also have another investment that's Space and Time that's looking at data. So your data out is only as good as the data you put in, right? So they're looking at that. There's so many different vectors that our startups can come in and fill a hole. And one of the goals of my team is to make sure that we're enabling those connections and partnerships with Microsoft so that either we partner, maybe it's a huge strategic partnership where they're filling for Microsoft, right, in our product space, because we can only do so much.
Speaking of this changes everything, this also changes the stack itself. And with Lee, what we were talking earlier, Qualcomm has strong opinions about where a lot of AI will take place. So talk about that relative to your investments.
Sure. So I'm Quinn Lee. I head up Qualcomm Ventures. So we're the venture capital arm for Qualcomm. We've been investing in the broader ecosystem for 23 years. So we have a pretty large portfolio, about 150 companies. So globally, that's valued at a little over $2 billion. So the primary area we invest are very aligned with our core business, which is around smartphones, AI, automotive, IoT devices, where we align silicon processor technologies to power all these devices. We're probably known as a wireless company, but today, if you look at our products, it's really a connected processor. We make low power CPUs, GPUs that's going to all sorts of devices, including cars, PCs, and other IoT devices. From an AI perspective, um, we think generative AI will have huge implications to all industries. We think in the initial phase, a lot of the AI deployments and processing will be done in data centers. And because the amount of training that's required, the amount of processing capability that's required, but we think over time, a lot of the, especially inference, will move to the edge of the device. We actually showed a demo of a stable diffusion model that's 1 billion parameters that's running on a smartphone. So the smartphones are so capable these days that you can run these, probably not the huge models, but a reasonable size model, like a billion parameter model, is able to run on a smartphone device. And if you think about even automotive, right? Autonomous cars like an AI computer on wheels, essentially. So a lot of these AI processing needs to happen in the vehicle, on the car, versus everything going to the cloud. So we really think over time, a lot of AI processing will happen in the cloud, but some will move to the edge of the device, and that's what we're focused on.
Is that because of more processing power, more speed at the edge, less demand on the network, better use of power? What do you think draws that development?
There's a privacy thing. You may want to not send all the data into the cloud. That's
Mhm.
one thing. The other thing, latency, right? There's latency associated with sending everything to the cloud and come back. So if you have the processing capability in the device locally, you will just run the models locally on device. So privacy, latency, power efficiency, a variety of reasons.
Okay, well, let's turn down to AMD. And my friend Ashish in the back, I think, is associated with your firm. So
Yeah,
I have some sense of where you're going and thinking big, but say more, please.
sure. So Sagi Paz, part of AMD Ventures, we accelerated our pace of investments last year, and this year we look to do 10 plus investments. Most of it is actually going to be in AI. We think that AI is going to be a big investment area for us. At a high level, when we make investments, we are looking to invest in companies that we believe can become market leaders. But at the same time, we want to invest in companies that we feel that AMD is uniquely positioned to add some value. So we don't just want to be name on the cap table. We provide value to companies. When it comes to AI, nowadays we are looking to invest in horizontal AI platforms. We are looking to invest in AI model companies. We are looking to invest in AI infrastructure. Um, when it comes to opinions, AMD is a big proponent of open ecosystems, and we think that in the future it will be easier to run different models on all kinds of different compute platforms without too many challenges. It can also mean that there are going to be more standard frameworks that go from cloud to the edge. So developers find it easier to develop and deploy their models, whether it's in the data centers or for use cases. It can also mean different things for the architecture level. So, for example, more broadly adopted standards when it comes to networking and stuff like that. So, this is how we think that AI will develop over time. but obviously it's going to be a gradual move towards that vision.
Okay. And Tom, last intro question. You were in the news in November with a $500 million AI fund.
Right.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Say a little bit about that. Have you spent it all yet?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself. So,
course.
Tom Whitaker. I'm a partner with IBM Ventures. I've been excited for this panel for a while, having been in corporate venture for the better part of my career, 25 years. Quentin, you're right. We did announce a $500 million enterprise AI fund in November. That is all about enterprise AI, so as described. We invest both, a lot of corporate venture programs are different. You're either strategic, you're financial. When we get that question, our answer is we are both. So we look to make sure we make investments in companies where we can add value, and we have a firm belief that it's never strategic to lose money. So we try to avoid the big losses. In terms of the stage and check size for our fund, it's all early stage, Series A to Series C, bite sizes from 2 to 5 million. We're big believers in open source at IBM. One of our first anchor investments out of that $500 million fund was in Hugging Face. So that, open models, open data sets, open applications, kind of made a statement for what we're going to be looking for going forward.
What was the size of the Hugging Face?
Unannounced, but it was
Okay.
on the top end of our range. Our range is from 500K to 10 million. And,
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, rounding there to, but strategically relevant, and the thought leadership that comes with an investment like that for both Hugging Face and IBM alone worth the price. But
But you say typically it's 2 to 5 million, right?
the average check size.
So on a $500 million fund that's between 100 and 250 investments, that sounds exhausting.
It can be. It can be. We're getting busy. We have a small team, so it's even more exhausting. But it's a 10-year commitment. It's not a traditional venture fund where we're going to put all that money to work in the first 5 years. It's over 10 years.
Okay, let me take this one as jump ball. Anybody come in here, because I want to ask a question about the industry generally, and the Hugging Face example really sets it up nicely, which is Microsoft and OpenAI, very big, very deep commitment. Amazon with Anthropic, another kind of monumental bet. Hugging Face, 10 million, but you're sort of stating a focused partner. Does every company need, eventually, does every large corporation need a particularly important investment, large scale commitment? Do you declare against something, or can you just play the field, you think?
So I'll go for IBM. Our investment is in Watson X, our own platform. So that's where we're going to place the majority of IBM's money. From the venture perspective, we're looking at early stage startups to bring the outside in strategic ways. So again, with our program being 500K to 10 million, that's not going to move the needle for a bigger play that IBM may or may not make.
Okay, so you see that may happen, but it'll be on a corporate side. The venture's not involved.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And is at Microsoft, do you make reference to OpenAI, or are you sort of in a different space from what the corporate?
Well, so M12, takes full advantage of this partnership that we have with OpenAI, and we get, better access, et cetera. But it's not us making that actual investment. Much like IBM, like those dollar amounts are way beyond the check sizes that we take. What we can do, and one of the things that I think is probably the most valuable from my company perspective of why I have a fund, is we can help inform what's happening out there in this market, so that, hey, maybe we make another bigger investment into OpenAI because we see what's popping up. We already have a relationship. We allow access to Microsoft to be able to evaluate other options, and then Microsoft makes the decision. So we have the opportunity to play into some of those decisions and be a thought partner in terms of what we're boots on the ground is what we like to say. So we see a lot more than, some of the execs. So if we can bring signal and intel to help the company make a better decision, then I think we win, right? We prove our value. So
Okay, so
that's how we think. Like we, number one, you fully utilize it and take advantage of this for our companies to negotiate better access. We had an open AI day where our company is going to come in and have a whole day with the open AI team, which I think so we're able to get a little edge. So we fully take advantage, but I think our value really comes in for Microsoft when we can provide intel and what we're seeing to help make better decisions.
Yeah, I agree here. So I think the corporation welcome look at us as two ways. One is, as you mentioned, the insight. What are the new startups or innovation that's happening in our ecosystem, so that we can get educated, the management team, also internal folks, to be on the forefront of innovation, so everybody's aware of what's happening in the ecosystem. That's one. And then in terms of the company we invest in, it's really trying to create some partnerships with these companies. You talked about Hugging Face. We actually announced at the Mobile World Congress last week, we launched a Qualcomm AI Hub, which basically allows developers to deploy models and in partnership with Hugging Face, models that can run on Snapdragon, which is our processor, empowered devices in the cloud. So developer can run a model and be able to deploy these models into these devices, whether it's a phone or other devices that's powered by our chips, essentially. So we want to be able to get the developer ecosystem to build stuff that's based on our platform.
okay. And when companies come to you, well, there's two stages. First is saying to people, which I think you probably have to do a great deal. And then obviously saying the things that are closest. What's the thing that gets you to a yes? Unique,
Yeah.
relative to mission, highest upside.
So for us, it's the strategic relevance first and foremost. Is it something we need? So if we have competitive solutions being worked on internally, we're not going to go there. So it's first and foremost, is it strategic? Secondly, is it a good financial investment? To my earlier point, it's never strategic to lose money. The other thing is we don't lead investments. We only look to co-invest with other top tier VCs. So the startups coming to us, one of the first filters we ask is, do you have a lead? Do you have a term sheet? If they don't, we'll still take the meeting and learn and get the data point, but have them come back when they've found a lead investor. Corporate venture has been known to be dumb money. And so you get a lot of entrepreneurs and still VCs bringing their problem investments to you. We don't play that.
Okay.
So that was the early days of Corporate.
I am getting a certain theme here also of a kind of research function that feeds back into the corporation that you don't see in much venture.
I want to chime in on, you mentioned we're saying a lot of times no. Obviously, we are only investing in a small fraction of the companies that we meet. But I think that as a corporate, you can actually add value to companies that you don't invest in. So for example, you're talking with some companies that might not fit with what you want to invest in, but there can be a win-win situation between the corporate and the startup. And a lot of times what we are doing is creating those connections and making sure that the ecosystem knows who they need to talk to create those kind of dialogues. So it's not just we are getting the learnings, we can also give some to the ecosystem back, even without making investments.
Eric, you're nodding. Does that resonate with how you're viewing things at Oracle?
Yeah, it does. We're slightly different, I think, than some of the other folks here on the panel, in the sense that we invest in companies that really solve our customers' problems. So it's not that's really our focus, and that's part of the reason why we have an investment and a partnership, a strong one with Cohere. We view them as sort of key to our success and our customer success, and they were directly aligned with our mission. And that's generally how we look at it, and we don't limit ourselves in this space to just Gen AI companies, but companies that offer value, that support the entire sort of end to end from ideation through to production. It could be data prep or anything related to the space, but not necessarily Gen AI proper.
Right. What you say is very interesting there because you're targeted at customer problems, and that's fantastic because it is a solid win for Oracle. But because it's venture, it's customer problems that will be solved in a couple of years from now. You're sort of spotting the customer problem perhaps before the customer even sees it.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking, doing gap analysis, understanding where we have an opportunity to sort of grease the skids for our customers, and we do that pretty early on, and that's really helped us sort of get ahead of the curve. We do make this obviously, build versus buy decision on a daily basis.
Right. It's very attractive to the company in which you're investing because you're sort of saying, if this all works according to the timeline we're agreeing on, you'll show up just as there's a ready need that our salespeople can meet. We can partner together
That's right.
and solve for existing customers.
Yep.
That's pretty attractive from a growth perspective for them. Is that kind of a commonly held view here? Partnering and problem solving for the core company?
It is. With IBM Ventures, we call our model Capital Plus. The investment is really the glue that holds everything together. It gets our interests aligned to help the startup. Beyond that, if you're a founder, you think you really need four things. You need the capital that gets the conversation started. You need credibility, and having an organization like IBM on your cap table, we like to think helps with the credibility of a little founder trying to get traction, especially in regulated industries. You need customers. We have a lot of those. We have a large consulting organization. We don't lead with that up front, but we try to get there with our startups. And they need expertise at times. We also invest in the startups to bring expertise into IBM that we may not have, but we have 300,000 employees and a lot of very smart people that can help startups on certain topics.
Right. Anybody else want to speak to partnering in terms of setting up the initial relationship and continuing it?
I think that's the ultimate value. I mean, I agree with your I guess your C's, but when we can find ways to partner and accelerate the business of the founder, like that's ultimately what we're all about, right? That also results in financial returns.
Good news for Microsoft too.
Yeah, it's a win-win in a way, but back to the nose, I guess, if we look at a company and we don't really see a way that we can provide unique value for this company, my opinion is we shouldn't be investing.
Right.
We have a limited amount of investments every year. I mean, I guess some of the really early stage, it's hard. If you run the GitHub fund for Microsoft as well, a little more, unknown or uncertainty in terms of what's possible. So I guess that's a little bit of a different model, but in our regular fund, I would say if we don't think, it doesn't always pan out, right? But if we don't think that we can add unique value and help this company grow and accelerate their business, my opinion is, we shouldn't be in there.
Just maybe an added example of a partnership. So we invested in this company called Humane, which makes this AI pen. They actually announced the product, I think, towards the later part of last year. So they use our processor in the AI pen, and they use also work with OpenAI in the back end. So we had them at Mobile World Congress in our booth last week, and the amount of traffic they were able to get, they won multiple awards, and a lot of people were super interested in seeing the device working and so forth. So the funding team was very appreciative of, we host them in our booth at Mobile World Congress, and they were get a lot of interest and, excitement over the product.
Okay. How does AMD partner?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have a wide portfolio of products, right? We have GPUs, CPUs, adaptive compute, embedded compute. And a lot of times, we can offer those products to our customers. So if you look, for example, at the AI space, you see a lot of what I call GPU intensive companies. So companies that are doing a lot of training or are providing some AI cloud access. And they need access to GPUs. And with the scarcity in the market, we can offer some supply assurance, for example, for GPUs to our partners. So that can be one angle. But there can be many other things. So for us, it's about finding a genuine story of how we can add value. That can also be things like technology collaboration or some joint go-to-market motion. It can be many, many different things for different companies. But when we assess investment, we want to have genuine story as part of what we can bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, we don't have infinite capital. We need to make sure that we put it in places where we can be uniquely positioned to help the company succeed.
Now, by your answers, you're starting to create this very interesting potential future history of the industry, because in each case, the companies have visibility into what customers are doing now with AI and how they're thinking about AI. You're thinking about how that will work for customers in 2 or 3 years, and you're thinking about the gating factors that might hold back the development of AI and the accelerating factors that you can put into your products or work with to make it speed up. Um, Please name those. We'll just go down the line. Like, what are the gating sort of two themes? The best accelerating theme for this with customers, and the biggest hurdle that needs to be overcome for AI to really take hold with customers.
Um, Good question. So I think Hidden Layer. We're not the only investor in Hidden Layer on the panel. But
I'm going to this panel.
one of the big challenges, I think, is going to be security, right? Security, and then in particular trust and compliance with regulated industries. So IBM is well positioned to address that, but we can't do it all. So investments like Hidden Layer help us we call it get to the future faster. They help us get to the future faster on things that we're not focused on or haven't been focused on.
Okay.
I think that another big barrier is cost. I think that the cost of training, the cost of inference is really, really high. And you see nowadays, for example, companies have developed great models, but it's really, really expensive to use them in production. Or if you look at the training side, I mean, you don't have too many shots on goal, right? I mean, you need more efficient ways to do training, and then I think that can unlock a lot of value.
That's true. It's magic until you see the bill.
Exactly.
What would you say? Gating factor, positive factor, what theme?
I think accuracy of some of those models still hallucinates, some of those large language models. So I think the accuracy it's improving, but it probably for very large models, for very broad tasks, I think there's still probably some improvement to be had.
Hallucinations are kind of a fact of life here.
Yeah.
You can tamp it down, but they're never going away.
Probably not. But maybe for narrow use cases, you can reduce the amount of hallucination or inaccuracy, if you will. And then the other one, to your point, is the cost, right? That's why one of the reasons we're thinking that not everything needs to run in the cloud. A lot of things can run on these devices, whether it's a PC or a smartphone. You
That's
have a lot
kind of an accelerator.
lot of capabilities on these devices, and you don't have to send everything to the cloud. That will cost a lot of money to run there if you can run on devices.
I fully agree with everything that's been said already. I mean, cost, the trust of this, I think, is also like related, but kind of the next level. My background is I'm an antitrust lawyer, so I always go to the legal part of things. But
trust in the other sense of trust.
Trust in the other sense of trust, like responsible AI. What kind of regulation are we going to have? Like, what does this look like? Do we have AI leaders who I got hired into Microsoft back when we had a U.S. consent decree. Like, do we have a winner takes all that can control this in a way that isn't right? So there's just so much I think that we need to think about in order to get to that electricity, scenario that I gave. And until we have that trust, I think there's a lot of people who are very fearful, right? We're tech companies. We're in the middle of this. I think we have faith in where things are going. But at the same time, like if you look at just regular people, right, on the street, I use the reference of some family in the Midwest, there's a lot of fear. And so I think until we solve some of the fear and the trust in the system, it's gonna. I think that's a big gating factor.
I got to ask, do you think the fear is justified?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I do. Like, so this is Oriana, not Microsoft, perhaps, but obviously Microsoft's doing a ton in this space too. So probably think the fear is justified, right? Brad was just out talking about responsible AI and some of our positions there, but to Tom's point, there's a huge security risk. So we have to make sure we're investing in things like Hidden Layer and Signal on identity. Like,
I can see why trust is such an issue.
Yeah, there's new lines of attack. I mean, you get I sat in a presentation where someone had Satya speaking to Satya giving a pitch. So they just took, video footage of Satya Nadella, and they had Satya on the screen giving the pitch. They obviously hadn't said these things. I mean, like, that's concerning, right? Now all of a sudden what are that? We're in the middle of elections, right? Like, how do you control some of this to make sure that we can trust what we're seeing, what we're hearing?
You're right. I am scared. Okay.
Sorry.
Eric,
lawyer
we
brings
got
it all
all the way.
down.
We got all the way to the end of the panel, and nobody said data, anything about data. Fortunately, you work at Oracle.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the panel has it right. I agree with. I mean, I'll double down on cost for sure, and I'll just elaborate a little bit. We've been biasing towards we'll call them medium-sized models. We've seen pretty amazing capabilities come out of those models after they've been specialized and fine-tuned that frankly rival some of these much larger models. So that does help to drive the cost or keep the cost down. So that's one aspect. But that needs to get better as well as just latency in terms of being able to apply the technology to a broader set of use cases. So that's on the technical side. I think on the data side, Gen AI has really been focused all around unstructured data. Now it turns out Oracle has a lot of structured data under management by our customers in our databases and in our apps. So we're doing quite a bit in that area in terms of research to kind of unlock that data and really make it easier to use in a generative AI context. And yeah, there's natural language to SQL and accessing this data via APIs and so forth we're working on. But we have some other Skunkworks projects underway that will help unlock that data in this context. So we're pretty excited about that.
Okay, I have many more questions, but I also have a room full of smart people, and I'd be happy to take anything from the floor if someone has a question for the group. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Somebody want to be bold?
I'll jump in while people are thinking, because we all kind of went to all the risk and the hurdles. And I'll also say, like, there's just such a unique, we're at a unique moment too, where AI could do so much benefit, right? And we see it just in everyday use, like simple things. I'm in a investment committee meeting, and now instead of an analyst taking notes, like the co-pilot can just do it for us with action items. And so, like, we are seeing a lot of benefit already, which I think is just a small precursor of all that's to come. So to bring it up a little, I think we've all seen really amazing use cases for AI already, which I think it's a really exciting time to be here.
I've been leaning very heavily on the corporate side here, but there is the venture side of corporate venture. And I'd be interested on your reads of what the market is like generally and where you think it's going. Is investment pitched about right? The Goldilocks moment or no?
It's exciting. Like, we haven't seen anything like this since when I first got into venture in '99 with the last big mega trend called the internet. So I think we're in the early innings there.
Feels like that?
What's that?
Does it feel like the internet?
I think it's bigger. I think this time around is bigger than the internet ultimately, or as big. Maybe that's hard to be bigger than the internet, but
we did have a bubble then too,
What's that?
We did have a bubble.
Well, so I was getting to that. Yeah, you got to be careful, right? Again, our mandate is both strategic and financial. So with the tagline that it's never strategic to lose money. So yes, it's fraudy, but some of these are worth the price of admission. And I think we're in inning one, not even inning one of a 9-inning, maybe extra inning game. So a lot to come.
Sagi, how do you feel about the market?
I mean, I think that, we've seen many trends go up and down, but I think that what's unique about AI is that you actually have a killer app, right? I think that you see like blockchain, AI, a lot of other things that were not ready for prime time, or there was no real understanding of why we need it. I think that with AI, everyone kind of like understand where we are going to. It's just like there is a question of how fast can we get there and what would it take to get there. But I think that when you have a killer use case, it's going to happen. Just a matter of timing.
I think AI, the space AI is certainly hot right now. The question is, I think from our standpoint, longer term, I think that AI will have very fundamental impacts for all sorts of things, enterprises, consumers, all sorts of things. So when we look at investment opportunities, we are trying to balance the strategic side of things and the financial return, because at the end of the day, you're losing money is not strategic, right? So you gotta make sure over time, from a portfolio standpoint, you actually make money for the corporation versus losing money. So it's very important not to ignore the financial return.
What you've said is the recipe for a bubble 100%. When something's going to change everything, it's impossible to price. So the market tends to run towards infinite. And when it turns out to be just incredibly important, that's a retrace. That's what happened with the internet. It's happened with technology for a century in that sense. What is something you know will be true after the bubble bursts?
It's here to stay. Like it's not
Okay.
going away.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Go deep on the core technology.
And I think that you're going to see different kinds of AI companies. You're going to see the platform companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and maybe Hugging Face. I mean, you're going to have those big platforms, but you're going to also have companies that are kind of completing the software, right? So you're going to have the ML ops companies that are here to stay. You're going to have vector databases. You're going to have a complete stack like you had with big data, right? So the same is going to be true for AI. And for the most part, I mean, the broader ecosystem are going to adopt those solutions, right? I mean, companies became data-driven companies. They're going to become AI-driven companies in a matter of a few years. So definitely here to stay. I think that it's hard to predict exactly how the software stack would look like or which platforms are going to win, but there's definitely going to be winners across the platform and across the software.
I think that's a AI-driven company is a very interesting concept. I'm not sure it's really clear yet. But when an AI observes a company holistically, it's going to start telling management things about the company that management doesn't realize yet. And that's really going to change sort of what they're about. That'll be an interesting thing to observe. But I would love Microsoft's view on this the market overall, because they're clearly a leading winner at this point. Companies must show up for you with dollar signs in their eyes. How do you view the market? How do you bring them back down to reality?
Well, again,
Maybe you don't want to.
Yeah, well, no, it's a tough question. You know, if you look at the overall market, there's a lot of like, I think someone said frothiness, like even worse than frothiness right now, right? AI is hot, and if you look at everything else, it's not, right? Like, so we have like a big financial issue happening at the moment, but it's really easy to kind of get blindsided by
Really
like the money going into AI, which is totally true, and I think it changes things. You know, I think what we see is pretty much almost every company coming our way, like, is an AI company somehow, right? Are they really? Maybe not, but they're calling themselves an AI company because everyone wants in on the hotness. But it'll be interesting to see, like, can you continue this like two worlds, basically? I mean, if you look at venture funding and everything else, it's way down compared to where we were, right? And so things have kind of come back into reality on check size in many spaces, but not AI. So how? I guess it doesn't totally answer your question, but
no,
that's curious to me in terms of like what happens in a year or two if this continues. And like
that signals the rebalancing.
Yeah, yeah. But I do think, you know, AI has some power here to help in this too. If you look at the power of AI and what it could promise, if you simplify it to saving time, I'm already seeing that. Saving money, whether that's efficiency of the worker or how you do things or how you train models to like get to the answer quicker. And then also just like saving lives, whether that's like the healthcare use cases or the, you know, sustainability type use cases. There's just so many applications that it helps bridge those gaps a little, because the goal or the hope is that AI kind of makes everything a little bit more efficient, right? Otherwise, we're doing this. So maybe it helps bring things together. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is how do these two worlds like come back into
no, and I think it's important to keep in mind this is corporate venture capital, meaning there is risk. Like it's not strategic to lose money, but it will happen. In aggregate, I think we'll be good. But If
It's
we're
usually not strategic to do nothing either.
Well, that's
You
it.
gotta go.
Yeah, you got to push the limits, and that's where all these groups are out on the frontier in terms of what's coming next. And
Right.
so that's a risky.
Eric, the market. Yeah, I'll tell you, I think we're so early on that there are a lot of companies that are specializing in some small niche. I expect there to be sort of classes of the stack, if you will, parts of the stack, and some of the capabilities that some of these specialized startups are doing today it's going to get subsumed or collapsed into and offered by some of the infrastructure companies. So there's going to be companies that fail here, and ultimately, I believe longer term that enterprises will ultimately consume the generative AI capabilities through apps, right? They'll be sitting on top of some stack and so forth. But today, a lot of the capabilities they don't exist in apps, and so companies see value or an ROI for picking a problem to go out and build that themselves. I think that's going to change in the next couple of years once these capabilities are built into some of the standard offerings out there.
Okay. I can take one question or claim it for myself. Sure.
In terms of
The golden rule in terms of culling. What's your kill switch? When do you decide to end this relationship, get out of here, move on?
I'll jump.
When
That's the big no.
You can't.
Well, yeah, I would say when they go out of business, get acquired or IPO, then
Wow,
we
it's just
that's when
ride
we
or
call.
die all the way down? What's that? Just ride or die all the way down?
Well, you do whatever you can to add value and hope that doesn't happen, but it does. Like again, risk business.
I don't think it's easy. You can like just separate invest in the company, kind of stuck with it. Obviously, you can try to sell the shares in the secondary market if you want, but that sends that bad signals out. So the usual path is the company gets acquired or IPO, or bad cases they will get shut down.
Cars get sold for parts.
Yeah.
It happens too. Yeah, you can't just walk away, I guess. Well, I will take a last question. How do you think AI is changing your own business? And how will it change your own business?
I can jump in here.
Yeah, please.
We are. It's funny, but we get asked this question a lot, and candidly, we need to do more because we're Microsoft, and obviously, we've got a lot of AI in our products. We dog food, right? A lot of what Microsoft's putting out. So co-pilots, I talked about the meetings. Our marketing team uses a lot of it. Like, there's a lot you can do just automatically these days. So, hey, I'm on a panel. Let me put into ChatGPT what kind of questions should I ask? I probably should have put some answers, like asked
it made you
for some
look really
answers.
good.
But
okay.
yes, I know. Like now I'm thinking, oh, that was silly. Why didn't I use that? But in any case, so that's another way. But I think when the real so that unlocks a lot of efficiency.
Right.
But I think the real power will come in when we can harness some of the data out there to make better decisions. So as I think Tom, you were the one that said, hey, this is a risky business. Things close. Like if we can use some of the data to help predict and make better decisions, I think that's really cool. That's what we're working on and looking into right now. We did a project in the past when I first came into the fund. Data was super expensive. The investors weren't really bought into it, but I think we're in a new world right now. So we're looking into tapping the power of the data that's out there and the data that Microsoft has, the data that Microsoft buys to be able to figure out better decisions. And then I would also say we try to use some of our own portfolio products as well. So Evisort has a new product where I can just query it on all of our documents. So someone asked about what happens when you want to walk away. Well, you can kind of see what are the things you need to do if they're going to wind down. What are what's in the contract? We also invested in Grow Space, and Grow Space has a whole platform in terms of coaching and learning. So I can kind of turn over some of my employee development to that platform. So I think there's just so many cool ways that we can harness this. So that's I guess more to come, but that's a few of the things that we're doing right now.
Okay. Anyone else? I see we're at the clock. but I'm going to hold it back in case anyone has one last strong opinion they want to deliver to the room. Otherwise, we're at time. Going once, going twice. I asked for strong opinions. I got them. Let's give them a hand.
Thanks, Quinn.
Now it's got hold of me. SOS, is it me or is this dangerous? Kill me with your touch. You're soaking through my blood. RIP, set me free. Yeah, this is dangerous. I can't get enough. Wanna fall into your super love. Give my heart, never wanted to stop. Please save me. 'Cause I never see else. You're the one that you're making me go. Please save me. So give me all of your super love. 'Cause my body is a ghost for you. I'm waiting. Right here in your arms. Falling in love with you. I'm tripping, I'm falling hard from the highest height. Where will you be? Your hair looks much better pushed over to one side. How do you feel about me? SOS, this is real and this is dangerous. You're my favorite drug. I'll suck you in the head. RIP, what a dream. You're so damn dangerous. I can't get enough. Wanna fall into your super love. Give my heart, never wanted to stop. Please save me. I'm ready for feeling and now. You're the one and you're making me drop. Please save me. So give me all of your super love. 'Cause my body is a ghost for you. I'm waiting. Right here in your arms. Falling in love with you.
I wanna let it take control. Cause every time that she gets close, she pulls me in enough to keep me guessing. Maybe I should stop and start confessing. Confessing. Oh, I've been shaking. I know that when you go crazy, you think I'm lying. Baby, there's nothing holding me back. You take me places that tear up my reputation, manipulate my decisions. Baby, there's nothing holding me back. There's nothing holding me back. There's nothing holding me back. She says that she's never afraid to picture everybody naked. She really doesn't like the way. Not really into hesitation. Holds me in enough to get to. Oh, maybe I should stop confessing. Confessing. Oh, I've been thinking about it when you go crazy. You think I'm lying. I'm thinking, baby, there's nothing holding me back. You take me places that tear up my reputation, manipulate my decisions. Baby, there's nothing holding me back. There's nothing holding me